Morning, everyone. It's lovely to sit with you all this morning, to come together in this way as we do. You might have seen, I was sitting in the Zendo proper here in New Paltz, and no one came. And so, for the purposes of a better Wi-Fi connection and not using a hotspot, I came down to my home, and I went, "Oh, right, it's solstice. It's that time of the year when people often travel and are with family, moving about our country, celebrating all kinds of different solstice traditions that they might celebrate, or maybe not." Um, and it feels particularly important to come together in this way today, given sort of what's going on in the world. It doesn't seem that there's a corner of our great planet that we could look at that isn't facing some sort of strife or struggle, experiencing some sort of profound tragedy or pain. And, in one breath, isn't this always the case? Although it feels particularly, particularly strong for me right now. And so I think it's an important time to turn the light inward in this darkest day of the year. And as the days grow longer each day going forward, and as we enter into our Ango, our peaceful dwelling period as a community together, where we increase our practice and really look deeply. And yet, as this news arrives each day, these painful stories we see in our media feeds, wherever we're getting our news from, it's, even equally more ironic, I find, at a time of year when we're somewhat mandated or acculturated to be joyful, to be light-seeking and comfortable in that. And yet, for many of us, I think that that pressure can only add to a sense of sadness, intensify a sense of loss if we are experiencing that, and stir a lot of grief and loneliness and all of those feelings. So joy and grief really are common partners. I think they walk hand in hand. So when everything around us feels like it's on fire, as we chanted the dedication of the Heart Sutra this morning, I thought, yeah, everything, all the griefs, all the heartbreaks of the world. As it feels that way, how do we move forward? How do we move forward in a steady manner, in a sure-footed way? And not only for ourselves, but for our, micro communities, our families, our friends, our Sangha, everyone. So for some of you, this might be a familiar Dharma talk, and that I'm hearkening back to some of what I shared a few months ago, 3 months ago. We had our eye-opening here in New Paltz, and this was postponed quite a bit for many reasons while we've been sitting together as a community for going on 7 years now. There was a global pandemic that sort of slowed up our ability to gather together and do the ceremony of an eye-opening for our temple. So we did that. Shinryu Roshi came up, and a few of you were all here or joined us online. And it was a very important day for us because not only did we open the eyes of the image on our altar, we also, it lined up quite nicely with some paperwork that we completed and received our 50c3 status. And we decided to sort of honor the Japanese tradition of giving our temple a Japanese name. And so while we will always be NPZC, and in the corner of our Zoom screen, those will be the initials you see, we now have a fancy Japanese name as well. And in the tradition, there's two parts, sort of your geographic mountain name, and then sort of what you're all about. So our mountain name was quite easy. We live along the Schwangunk Ridge in New Paltz, and that translates from the Lenape as rising smoke or rising mist mountain. So the first portion of our name, which we will rarely use, is Shomuzan, Rising Smoke Mountain. And the second part of our name is Deer Path Hermitage. So our little shack of a zendo, and this property is along a deer path, a well-established path that probably stretches down to the oxbow. Yes, we have similarities to Northampton in that we have an oxbow, a sort of rare geographical form in the Wallkill River, where I'm confident that the deer spend a lot of time grazing in fields there, and then they travel up into the woods adjacent to our property through our property. And we can see, particularly when the snow falls, so Deer Path Hermitage is Rokuroan, if I didn't share that with you. So Shomuzan Rokuroan. And when the snow falls, as it did recently, we can see them. You know, their paths, their heart-shaped footprints, all throughout our property, everywhere. And, it sort of tracks their quiet and persistent journey. But these deer, they also have a lot of danger in making this journey on this path. We reside right on 32 North in New Paltz, and while it's not a 5-lane highway, it's fast traffic. It's 45, 50 miles an hour out in front of our house, and we've had quite a bit of construction, much needed construction, some apartments, because housing was very short here. And so I'm happy in one breath, but it has blocked much of the path, I think, for these deer and made it all the more dangerous for them. So some of you may remember a few years ago, I gave a talk about a deer who had been hit and died on our property. And unfortunately, that has happened again just about 4 weeks ago. A deer was hit and then died right at the foot of our driveway. And some of you might have seen some photos that Jiryu had taken of this. He shared this. They were quite graphic. And so I won't go into detail of the exact images, as I recognize not all of you are nurses and share my fascination with some of the graphic natures of this. But it was amazing to see how quickly life was folded right back into life. The turkey vultures and the black vultures and the foxes and the coyotes and wolves and all the animals that live about this property quickly dispatched with this deer. Although its carcass is still on the property and it's been moved around a bit, it is pretty much picked clean. So when I was standing with the deer and its body that had been offered sort of sky burial style, I couldn't help but think about the path that we travel, this Zen practice path. And often we speak about it as simple, that our practice is very simple, and it is. And yet that does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, that it's easy. Like the deer's crossing, it can be dangerous, perilous, and not because practice can harm us, but more so because it's asking us to really look at our fear, our uncertainty, all those areas on the periphery that we can sort of push away. And it's asking us to stay present even when conditions are confusing or heartbreaking or even cruel. And so recently, I'm feeling personally right now what I'm carrying, and we might all be carrying different things that have been touching us, that have been happening politically, globally, environmentally. My latest thing that is sort of itches me is I'm soon to be completing a master's in science nursing education. I have one more semester of this degree to complete. And just recently, many of you are probably aware that the administration has decided to deprofessionalize quite a few career paths. So PT, OT, RNs, advanced practice RNs, meaning midwives, nurse anesthetists, nurse educators, and making that and taking away that professional licensure or the professional component of it, it's making it impossible for these people to get student loans and advance themselves. So from the nursing standpoint, as I am a nurse, I am, particularly dumbfounded by this when, just minutes ago, it was pots and pans at 7 p.m. As I was leaving the hospital and, quite a lot of respect. And now it's an inability to get a student loan to further my degree and help and to serve. And it just seems particularly cruel. And so when I learned this, I was devastated, obviously, not just for myself. I have one more semester and I've been able to sort of scrape together the funds to pay my way as I go. But I think of the many people who, while I'm by no means financially stable, have it even more difficult and will now say, well, I was thinking about taking care of my community and becoming a nurse practitioner, but I'm not going to do that now because it's not financially capable of, I'm not financially capable of doing that. So it hurts me. And I share it not to argue policy, but to really just shed light on when we're moving forward on the path in faith and, good standing, and then it's shaken underneath us. It can be very difficult to make that next step, to know what the next step is. And this is our practice. I think this is exactly what our practice is. So Dogen Zenji in the fascicle Kato, or entwining vines, really sort of sheds light on this. We're on the path, but there's so many entwined vines that obscure it. And what are they? Are they our thoughts? Are they our emotions, our ideas, our projections, our regrets? All of those intertwined vines that can make it really difficult to see where we're stepping, how we're moving forward. And in fact, we might feel completely lost at times. But the path is always right below our feet. It's right there. And Zen practice does not promise a clarity in advance. It asks us over and over again to step anyway, to trust that the ground is going to reveal itself through the act of stepping. And so these deer, they don't make the journey alone. They travel in herds. And there's other words, words to describe a group of deer. So herd I really like. It's sort of lumbering like a sports team to me, and there's something sort of protective in it, a camaraderie. But the other word that's used that I've really kind of fallen in love for, and when I see the deer on my property together, I go, oh, yes, is parcel. So the word parcel feels sort of wrapped, that it's been, put together and tied together, and it's a community that's been bound together and carried in relationship. And so I think of the deer and I think of our Sangha, this is Sangha, to come together in this way, to walk together. We practice together, or I practice with other people because I feel the path is too difficult to walk alone. There's people who do it and probably do it well, but not me. And, when danger appears, the herd senses it. One ear, cocks and hears, and then another tail flickers and another freezes, and then whoosh, the deer go. So each deer depends on this wide awareness of the other deers. It's sort of a gigantic neural network in the community. And look at the deer's eyes. Consider those as well. They're wide set. I think I just read recently that they have a 300 to 310 degree field of vision. So this very wide set vision. And maybe we could take a page from that, because what they lack in depth perception, they make up in, sort of 360 degree awareness. And maybe as Zen practitioners, we could put down a desire to perceive deeply and just be aware of where we actually are, moment to moment to moment. So I think practice asks us to do that. So we learn to widen our gaze, to sense conditions as they actually are, and to notice our edges, the periphery of our vision, and what resides there, the fear, the uncertainty, the anger, the worry. So I was recently gifted a book by a friend called Taking Care. It's a sort of history on nursing, and it was written by Sarah Di Gregorio. And it traces the history of nursing and the power of nursing to change the world. And I have yet to finish it. I was only given it a little over a week ago. And I, of course, like a good Zen student, jumped to the chapters that I thought I would find interesting, chapters entitled Collective and Power. So I was looking at those, and what struck me, and I'll say this, in the earliest part of the book, she speaks of nursing not from RN, BSN, but anyone who's taking care. So we're all nurses. We're all have the ability to be nurses, and we are. I think the Bodhisattva path is a nursing path. So what struck me is how clearly nurses have always understood something that Zen teaches well, and that is that care is never an individual act. It's not one individual caring and enacting care. It's relational. It's something that comes up codependently, arises. It's systemic, and it's sustained by the showing up of people together. And so nurses, like the deer, don't survive alone. They're not alone in this path. And yet, despite this wide awareness, the deer's actual movement is very simple. It's just one heart-shaped footprint in front of another heart-shaped footprint. So a deer trail, it's not very dramatic. It could be completely missed if you're not really carefully, looking at the woods to see where you might see just that slight opening. And it's pressed into the earth by their hoofs, careful steps. It follows the contours of the land. It doesn't push through some area, doesn't dynamite out a mountain to make a tunnel. It follows where it goes most easily. And it requires courage and patience and community to walk on it. So paradoxically, this narrow path that is almost invisible, that's very specific in our Zen sort of way, form-laden, embodied, it opens a vast understanding. So narrow path, vast robe. The instructions are not, I'm sorry, I just lost my place. And when we stop trying to manage everything, when we stop trying to see it all and walk a great road, but we stay sort of on this narrow path, the world opens to us. We get to see everything more fully. So some of you may know that here in New Paltz, we are doing some precept study, and we're getting ready for some students here to take the precepts in March. New Bodhisattvas, 90 minutes north of New York City. It's a very exciting time for us. And so we have people who are formally committed or formally committing themselves to following this path. And I prefer to think of the precepts as a deer path, as a well-worn path, traveled by many before us, and will hopefully be traveled by those following us. And it shows us the countless practitioners that have walked before. And it doesn't mean that, traveling on this path is going to remove all of the dangers of the world, all of the tragedies of the world, the pains and discomfort, but it will offer us guidance, a way through. So to take refuge in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha is to say, I will not cross this busy road alone. I will cross it with others, with the help of others. So when one is frightened, another, sees more clearly. And when one of us stumbles, there's another to catch us. And when one of us forgets, there's another that will remember. So sometimes, despite all of the care, all of the cautious awareness we have, a deer is struck. We are struck. We get hit. Loss happens, bodies fail, institutions fail and falter. Um, the world breaks our heart. Practice doesn't create a refuge for us to hide in. It offers us instead a way to actually meet this over and over again. So there's a Zen koan, that I'm think of, so even when we've had some glimpse, some sort of moment of awareness, when we've climbed to the top of the 100-foot pole, we have to step off. So on the solstice, as our days are growing longer, about 1 minute each day, I look forward to it. And as we move into this ongoing period of intensified practice, I wonder if we can avail ourselves of that light, that increased light, and walk both with wide eyes, with 100% more awareness, and also very cautiously, one heart-shaped footstep in front of the other. And may we trust our parcel, our sangha, our parcel of sangha, so nicely wrapped for the holidays. And we trust our sangha and honor this narrow path that's right beneath our feet. And so I'm going to leave you with a short gatha. Snow on the deer trail, one heart-shaped hoofprint after another, the whole forest listening. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Just this crossing and the quiet trust of moving together.